Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Amplify Your Business. My name is Lance Johnson, and I'm the host today. And I've got a special guest on today's show who's going to be talking all things video production in terms of storytelling, how to do it correctly. And so we've got Jesse here. Jesse, I'm going to just share my screen because we've built this beautiful little graphic for you. So Jesse Syzmanski is a TV producer. She's been producing for how many years now, Jesse?
22.
22 years in the production business, and has been working on shows that have won all sorts of awards. Blackstone is the big one, correct?
Correct. Yeah, but I've actually been shooting video since I was 10 years old with my grandma and grandpa's VHS camcorders. So
awesome. So I'm sure you're going to tell us a little bit about that maybe as we get into some of the different tips that you're going to be talking about in terms of what you've learned along the way and the importance of storytelling using video for that medium. And so I would love to hear a little bit more about your background, if you could, and then let's get into some questions.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, I started out in the business when I was straight out of high school. I went to NAIT here in the City of Radio and Television Arts and graduated, in 1998. So 22 years. I've done everything from entertainment reporting to corporate oil and gas in Fort McMurray, to lifestyle television, documentary series. And then prior to me starting Modern Muse Media, I was co-executive producer of a television series called Blackstone, which was nominated and won many, many awards across Canada. But the most significant was that we were nominated for Best Dramatic Series for the Canadian Screen Awards. So that is the Emmy of Canada. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about storytelling. So obviously when you're doing, big budget TV production, it's all about the story. So when it comes to the work that you're doing with Modern Muse now, with all of the business clients that you've got, and this is our audience is business, mostly small businesses, what can you share in terms of tips that you've picked up along the way that you learned through those massive projects that now you're applying to some of the businesses that you're helping out with their storytelling through the videos that you're creating?
Yeah, absolutely. So I fell in love with the short form content for website and social media platforms through the television series Blackstone, as I also had to oversee the content assets for the digital media component. So what that looked like, it was all of the behind the scenes and the interviews with cast members. And we took our Facebook fan page from 0 to 50,000 fans over the course of 5 seasons before this had ever been done before. So we were trailblazing. We were, one of the first production companies buying ads to send the viewers, the eyeballs to the TV screens. And I just loved it. I loved that short form content and that storytelling and being able to put it together in a shorter time frame and being able to have that engagement on the social platforms and that community that we built up. So when I started Modern Muse Media, it was really important for me to be able to empower companies to share their story. Quote from Robert McKee, storytelling is one of the most powerful ways to put ideas in the world today. And what is so exciting about where we are right now is that we have come out of what I spent almost my entire career in, which was the broadcast era, which is a dinosaur and it's kind of crumbling and becoming extinct now. And we've moved into the digital era, which is the power of storytelling. So when people are putting content out, especially during these last few months, because of course, I think the realization came about that you needed to get video to get visible, I was seeing a lot of content coming out without that necessary forethought or story structure, really in kind of like almost a fear-based, we need to be seen, we just need to get video out. But of course, what we as human beings find relatable is that genuine, authentic storytelling with that beginning, middle, and end.
Excellent. And so I know when it comes to the video projects that we do with our clients, there's a lot of planning that goes into those. and then we, do the actual production of it, and then in post we're editing everything together and creating this elaborate, so to speak, video for businesses. But I know you are teaching people how to do this themselves in their businesses so that they can basically create more content and tell more of their stories than what maybe would be, affordable for a lot of the smaller businesses out there. So can you walk me through what advice you would give them before they started, I guess, the production, before they turned the cameras onto themselves? What is those pre-production type tips that you would walk somebody through?
Exactly what we have in our curriculum of our social media video training program. So we developed a training program just for that. It's 30 hours, 12 modules, and a lot of it is theory, where there's this huge marketing component to really delve down into your why. We're hearing a lot about that, the why, the passion behind your purpose, right? But we act as that sounding board. So really being able to talk about what your focus is and what your story is, what your brand voice is. And what I mean by that is the difference between something like WestJet and Air Canada. There's a very, very specific brand voice there. You would use different adjectives to describe those companies after watching videos from them, right? Just from the feeling you get. So Air Canada is a little bit more professional, and they tend to use more blues and cold colors in their advertising and their video marketing, whereas WestJet is family oriented and smiles and warmth. And so you'll see that in the hues in the videos. And that, of course, is all pre-planned. So before you begin even scripting or even rolling a camera, you really definitely want to take a look at what your brand voice is. And that's something that we do offer. We do walk you through that. We have worksheets within our training programs because you really want that consistency established prior to starting to produce content on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed that. And I think probably everybody watching this have got some examples of videos that they watched or commercials that they've watched or content that they've seen on social media from different brands that they might follow, where it just seems really incongruent with what their actual experience is. And it just doesn't sit right. And that, I don't know, it just it taints, I suppose, or takes away from the message that business or that company is actually trying to communicate through that marketing piece. And so if you don't get that right, it's really difficult, I think, in order for the audience who's watching it to basically act the way that you as a business want them to act, which is, potentially visit your website or purchase a product or what have you. And so nailing that voice is really, really important, and being consistent with it. Okay, so any other tips?
To interject, I think what it comes down to is trust. So when you deliver inconsistency, you lose the trust of the viewer, and it causes confusion, which again breaks that trust. So that's a big factor, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, any other tips on the pre-production side? So you got to get the voice nailed right. I'm thinking about in terms of teasing out what that message or that story is. How do you go about doing that with your clients?
So then we would move into the next phase, which would be pre-production. So we've established your brand voice. We really have a great understanding of your why, some of the messaging that you want to do through video, brainstorm ideas for videos, because that tends to be a bit of a hurdle with people is what do we do videos on, right? And so we really help with that kind of brainstorming activities and concepting, I guess. We would move then into storyboarding. So we would teach them how to storyboard, which doesn't have to be this complicated, graphic design. It's just to have a really good idea of what you're going to be going out to shoot, so that when you're shooting, you're creating some efficiencies. You're not just going out and shooting everything that moves and shiny pretty. You have a really, really great idea that you can concept through a storyboard, and then that will transfer into a shot list. So then we take them through the exercise of how to create a shot list and a call sheet, which is the document that is basically sent out to all the people to go, okay, we're going to be arriving at your office at this time, and this is where we're going to go first, and we're going to do B-roll versus A-roll, which is the interviewing the subject versus the cover footage. And just walking them through every step of the way through that pre-production before you even roll the camera. So there's a lot of prep that that can create, like I said, these efficiencies and make it much smoother. And when you come back into editing, you're not having to go through, you know, this whole tons and tons of footage, which can take a lot of time. You have your concept, you have your vision, you go and capture it. And creating videos can be fun and easy. So that's something that we teach as well, because I know that that's also a big hurdle for people. Well, we source it out because I don't know that we can handle this internally. But if you're taught how to do it correctly and efficiently, then you can output that content and it doesn't have to take over your entire company. Right?
Yeah, a couple of things there that I wouldn't mind just adding to. So what I see is oftentimes happens when we come in and we work with a customer who has done some of their own video work, and they're just not happy with it. And you take a look at what they've created. Where I see the unhappiness is oftentimes because they didn't plan through the B-roll, actually. So even if they were able to nail the story right, if they're able to nail what it is that they wanted to communicate to their audience, which oftentimes with the businesses that we're working with, it's you know, more of these corporate kind of interview style where the camera's pointing at the owner of the business or the president of the business, and they're talking about something about their business, and then it cuts to an employee talking and maybe a customer talking and providing some testimonial in some form or something like that. When you're just talking heads and you don't have really good B-roll that shows some of the things that they do or the human aspect of it, the video tends to be, you know, quite boring and not engaging. And so that would be one of the tips that I would throw in there as well, is just really doing a good job in making sure that you plan out that B-roll and you always capture really good B-roll. And then the other thing that I think I'd like to add too is just what you were talking about, the footage. If you're just out there just, you know, running and gunning and shooting everything, not having much of a plan, and then you come back with all that footage and you've got hours of footage that you have to sort through, it's really difficult then to basically edit together a nice, concise video, because you've got so much footage you're going through and then reviewing it and then pulling clips out and then editing that down. And it turns into just a huge exercise, like you said. So the efficiencies are really about that planning it. And if you've got that structured out, well, you know then that you're going to take this clip that's really intentional, and that's going to go at this point in your video and so on. And this is where the B-roll is going to go, and you've got everything captured appropriately. So both of those really good. Like I love that you touched on those, and I just really wanted to stress that. Okay, so let's they've gone out there, they've filmed it, they've got great B-roll, they've got great A-roll, and they're starting to edit it together. Any tips for them on that part of the production process?
It's funny because through my career, I have sat with many editors, and sitting with them, usually I'm kind of over their shoulder and looking at the screens. And the best advice that I ever give to anyone piecing together a video is that it's actually like a dance. So you need to dance with the feeling of it. And what's interesting, when they do piece it together, the first thing that I ask them to do is to listen to the entire piece with their eyes closed. So head down, hands on the headphone. And so the story and how it lays out through the audio and with the music is actually more important than when you look up to the visuals as a first step. And then the second, of course, is that you're really wanting to make those edits, of course, dance as well to that music. So when picking your pieces, it needs to be aligned with the messaging or theme of what you're talking about. You know, you have a heartfelt interview when somebody's crying, you're not going to have, you know, super upbeat music. You're going to have some melody, some piano, strings possibly, and you're going to want to make those edits to dance. And it's interesting because every editor I have worked with, which there are many, I've seen an improvement in their editing when I've just been able to kind of calibrate that for them, that it's more of a feeling than it is a technical skill. So yeah, that's kind of the best advice I can give and have been giving for years.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love the analogy of the dance for sure, because everything has a bit of a rhythm to it, right? And so if you can capture that rhythm correctly, it's great. So you're recommending then in these videos to have some sort of background music track generally then, is that correct?
It really, really depends on the piece.
Okay.
So, you know, if you have something with a much more corporate feel, you may not want to have that music in. So, you know, editing becomes about molding that clay, right? So, you know, do I put the arm up here or do I put it down here? You have to play. You have to really experiment in the edit suite and see what feels right. It's interesting. Sometimes I'll make adjustments and make changes and I'll leave, and the next day I'll come in and I'll have slept on it and we'll change everything back or change everything differently, right? And so, yeah, it's music is just totally dependent on what kind of content you're putting out. Something that is very important in this day and age, though, is captioning.
Hmm.
So people are reading video a lot more. We're, of course, on our phones all the time. We take them with us. We are reading that content, not necessarily with that volume up. So that's something that we stress in our program as well. We teach captioning both on the mobile phone and on the desktop editing, but it is becoming industry standard that you capture your videos, and that's the professional way to output them.
Yeah, yeah, it's super important now. And actually, to tell you the truth, that's something that we didn't do with some of the earlier versions of Amplify Your Business, is take that time to get it transcribed and then add those captionings in there. And that's definitely a mistake because there's so many people that are watching these with the volume turned off, and so you don't want to lose that audience. And so that's gets into kind of what you should be doing with video once you've got the video out there into the wild, so to speak, and you've released it. And so that's one of the things, is that you want to make sure that you're placing it in the places in which your audience lives and where they could consume it, but you also want to give it to them in a format in which they can consume it the best. And so that's a really good tip too.
Yeah,
So
and sorry, on the caption, of course, it's not just with the sound off, but we also want to be respectful to hearing impaired. So
yeah,
I just want to make that note.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And there are some standards out there that for those people who haven't had an exposure to that, that some commonly held standards that one should be trying to achieve. And so that turns into, or looks at, the ability to understand it if you are, you know, hearing impaired, but also visually impaired, making sure that there isn't too much music and you can hear um, the voiceover and so on as well. And that,
Managing your levels. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Yeah. Just on a note that you had said where to put it, which I think is really, really important. So of course, there are so many social platforms out there, and something that I like to talk about when I teach my workshops, and that also exists in our training program, is DJing your content. So this is a Gary Vee-ism. For those of you who aren't familiar with Gary Vee and are wanting to get into video content creation, I would definitely check him out. And he's a huge inspiration of documenting, which all businesses could be doing, because people love to see that behind the scenes action of what you're doing and how your business started. The example he always uses is, wouldn't it be amazing if Vera Wang had documented her first gown as compared to where she is now, like just to follow that journey. I guess I got goosebumps. So where I was going with that rather is DJing your content. So if you're doing some fun corporate culture stuff and it's your team and it's a little bit lighter and sassy, you're going to want that content on Instagram, versus if you're doing a client testimonial and it's very polished and professional, you're going to want that on LinkedIn. And the reason why is because you may be targeting the exact same audience for these different platforms. But that being said, when they do pick up the phone or go onto the computer and go onto that social site, they're actually in a totally different psychological mindset depending on what social platform they're on. So something to keep in mind as far as where to put that content.
yeah, yeah, that's extremely important. And so also when you're talking about different platforms, do you get into discussions with your clients about the size of the video, you know, square versus rectangular versus vertical?
Of course, aspect ratio is huge, and we're seeing a lot of that. Also sharing from cross platforms, right? So of course you have your stories, which is going to be portrait for Instagram, and the standard post on Instagram are square. And whenever you're using YouTube or your website or Facebook, you're going to want to make sure that you're shooting horizontally. We see that mistake quite often. So that aspect ratio becomes really important, because the information that is seen is different. So if you're trying to post something from Instagram to Facebook and it's been shot portrait, you're of course going to have those lines on the side, which can be a bit distracting. And if you did turn your camera horizontally, you're going to see much more information, right? And of course, the same is true if you shoot horizontally and you're trying to post it on Instagram, you're going to see that content, that information cut off. So that is not going to serve you well.
Yeah, and so that kind of circles back again to that pre-planning aspect of it. So knowing how you're going to frame your shot if you're going to want to multi-purpose that filming. So when we want to multi-purpose something, we'll frame it in the wide angle. So we'll do a 16:9, which is your typical for, like you mentioned, Facebook, YouTube, and your website. And so we'll frame it that way, but we'll make sure that the action is happening in the center part of the video so that you have the ability then to trim off the sides and make it either a square or a vertical. And so knowing how you're going to use it is really important when you start planning out where you're going to place the subjects and so on within those within the frame of the camera when you're filming.
Definitely. And that's very smart to do that so that you're not having to do double the work, right?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I love about video, and why I think the company should be investing the time and energy into video and getting comfortable with it as well, right? Because there's so many people that are really uncomfortable being in front of the camera. But you can use that content in so many different ways. So, it's got to be one of the most versatile mediums possible, because you can use it on all these different social platforms. You can use the video on your website. You can use it in ad campaigns. And if it's good enough, I mean, you can be buying a TV spot or a spot in, Cineplex and so on, on those pre-roll or pre-movie roles, which we've had clients do as well. And you can use them in sales presentations. You can use them in training, modules and so on for the company. And so there's just a lot of different ways that you can use it. And so if you are also thinking about the size of it or the dimensions of aspect ratio, then it just multiplies again the number of places that you can deploy it. And so that what seems like a bit of a time investment and potentially a cost investment if you are hiring somebody like Modern Muse Media or Ample Media to create those for you, you do end up getting a really good bang for your buck because it can be used so broadly. And then I also used to say this a lot, and I think it still holds true, is that there's a greater likelihood of people actually sharing in social media a great video than they are on sharing just a great, image or something like that. And so that's proven to be statistically a significant uplift in that. And so you definitely get a lot more social action out of it as well. So video is definitely an important piece of the mix. So before we leave you then, is there anything else that you'd like to say just with regard to video production? And then I'll get you to talk a little bit about your big program, because I know you've got a great deal through a grant that can get people trained up really quickly, actually, and inexpensively on how to do this properly.
Yeah, no, I feel fulfilled. I think we covered a lot, and it's a lot of information. I'm hoping that everyone's going to understand what B-roll is. So, but if you don't, call me and I'll walk you through it. But yeah, no, I think that there was a lot of info there. And I mean, I'm obviously very passionate about it and have been since a really young age. And what I did want to touch on, actually, the one thing that you said is typically the biggest hurdle that I see people run into is that they're not comfortable with themselves on camera. Yeah. So there's some coaching that I do ahead of time. So it's not even the technical, it's not the shooting and editing, it's just getting comfortable with your own voice and with your own presence on camera. But that becomes really important as a small business, because small business owners are the faces of their passion and of their purpose and of their why. And so it's really important to get past that so that you can really connect with your audience.
Yeah, for sure. And in full transparency, just so everybody knows how good Jessie is. And hopefully I've been doing an okay job of it. Otherwise, this is a bad testimonial. But before I started recording the Amplify Your Business series, Jessie gave me a little coaching session, and it was definitely worthwhile and something that she did via Zoom. And so even during the COVID shut-in, or if you're just in some other part of the world, Jessie can do it remotely with you. And and help you get things set up properly. So you got a good background, so you've got good audio, so you've got good image coming out of your camera or your webcam. And so I definitely recommend reaching out to her for that. But I do want you to talk a little bit about your program, though, real quickly, just with regard to this grant, because it's unbelievable. You can get, I think it's 3/4 of your fees back that you have to pay, right? So yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
So that was the program that I was chatting about earlier. So that's the social media video training program. It's one of the first programs we developed. It was the first program we developed under Modern Muse Media when I really saw this need to train companies on how to do their own in-house video production on a regular basis. So I mentioned it's 30 hours, it's 12 modules, and the Canada-Alberta Job Grant can be accessed to cover 2/3 to actually 100% of the cost. So if it's a new hire, and somebody that they're bringing in, then it can potentially be covered 100%. Typically, I've worked with people that have in-house employees. They're doing their marketing or their social media. I help with the application. It doesn't take long. It's less than an hour. And nothing is paid for the training until you're approved for the grant. So it's really no risk. We get the grant in. I help you with that. And upon approval, we start scheduling your training sessions. Typically, they go once a week over the span of about 8 weeks. So in about 2 months' time, not only will you have an in-house person trained to do video content creation on a regular basis, but you also do a video. So you have your very first video that is professionally done under our care and supervision through that program. So it's pretty awesome. We've run it quite a few times, and we work a lot with nonprofits, interestingly enough, but every industry, from dentists to construction to, I mean, basically you name it. If people are wanting to get into video, then we're here to teach them how.
Yeah, so I just want to put this into perspective, how good of a deal this actually is, okay? Because we produce videos for clients, and so this is me, I guess, in a way, directing some of my potential customers away from us. But anyway, we serve a different role, and that is for those people who don't have that desire to produce them themselves. And in obviously all the animated videos that we do, that's not something that you're training people on. But when it comes to video production, when we're creating a video, we charge so much money to create that video, the time that it takes for us to come out and do that planning with you, do the storyboarding, capture the footage, and then go back and edit it. For less than what it would cost us to create one video, you can get this incredible 2-month training program with Modern Muse Media, so that you have somebody trained up who can then create videos for you, and so an infinite number of videos. And on top of that, you get, at the end of this training session, a really great video. So you end up winning on all fronts there. So that really, leads into some other topics around how do you best use video, how do you get eyeballs on those videos, and so on. And so what I want my clients to do is get to the place where they're creating as many videos as they need, and or what we can help them with that's going to move their business forward, so that we can help them get those eyeballs and stuff on it, because that's the bigger challenge oftentimes. So there's a challenge in creating the content, but usually the bigger challenge is, okay, how do we use that to actually drive your business forward? And so if you guys can get your videos created, give us a shout. We will help you guys get eyeballs on it. So it's going to be a great kind of 1-2 punch there between Modern Muse Media and Amplify Media. That's going to really drive your business forward. So a little plug there for I guess both of us.
I felt a little bit salesy there for one day only.
Yeah, right. Okay, so how can people reach you? How can people get in contact with you if they want to?
They can email me at info@modernmusemedia.ca, and I guess you can find that information on our website. So it's modernmusemedia.ca.
Okay, excellent. And so I'm just going to share my screen one more time. And so for those of you who enjoyed this session, we've recorded many more episodes of Amplify Your Business. You can access all of these archived episodes over at amplimedia.com/amplify, and we publish one a week. And so if this one here is not hitting you live or hitting you right away, and you're looking at some of the archives, make sure you keep checking back, because you're going to see more episodes as well that are going to get uploaded there. And they're all meant to give you tips on how you can market your business better, learn from some experts like Jesse, and do a better job of your marketing so that you can drive your business forward and really generate more customers. So head over there, and I'm just going to stop this sharing once again and then come back to Jesse and say thank you so much for your time, Jesse. Really appreciate it. I know that the viewers today have learned a lot, and I wish you the best as everybody starts to come out, the economy comes out of this COVID economy, slow down and whatnot. By the way, how's business anyway?
Business has been good, because I think the realization came, I mean, I was shouting it from the rooftops for a long time, but yeah, the realization occurred that video is definitely an asset at this point to get visible. So we've been doing quite well, and it's been an honor to help people stay visible and share their stories. And so yeah, it's been very good, but we have to continue to do that. So it's our passion, and we, like we say, we mentor, train, and empower people to share their story. So
beautiful. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, so thank you so much. And everybody who's watching, I wish you all the best. Take care and stay safe.